All right, today we're jumping into a really powerful story from the Book of Two Kings. It's this fascinating look at sight, blindness, and what's actually real, all seen through the eyes of theologian Dr. John Oswalt. So let's just start with a question that really gets to the core of this whole thing. What if the threat you think you see isn't the real danger at all? What if there's a much bigger reality happening, just outside your line of sight? So here's how we're going to break this amazing story down. We're going to follow the whole thing in 6 parts, from paranoia and fear all the way to a revelation that just changes everything. Okay, so our story kicks off with a king who is seriously backed into a corner. We've got the powerful king of Syria, and he's getting more and more paranoid by the day because every single plan he comes up with fails. And he's totally convinced there can only be one explanation. He's got a traitor in his ranks. I mean, you can just feel his frustration, right? He's cooking up these secret military plans in the most secure place he can think of, his own bedroom, and yet every single time, the enemy is already there waiting for him. So he gets his commanders together, looking around the room, just sure that one of them is the spy. But his servants, well, they offer an explanation that's way more disturbing. They tell him, look, it's not a spy. It's this prophet in Israel, a guy named Elijah, and he tells the king of Israel the words you speak in your own bedroom. The king's problem isn't a security leak. It's a man who's tuned into a completely different reality. And here's where we see the first big piece of irony. Instead of being cautious or maybe a little bit awestruck, the king just reacts with anger. Go capture him. And as Dr. Oswalt points out, this is our first real look at blindness. The king is so blinded by his own pride that he misses the most obvious thing in the world. How are you going to surprise a guy who already knows all your secrets? So you gotta ask, how can Elisha be so calm when there's an entire army coming for him? Well, the answer isn't really in what he does, but in who he is. And the text gives us this really important clue about his identity. You see, the text almost never calls Elisha just a prophet. The term it uses over and over is man of God. And Dr. Oswalt highlights this. It's not a job title. It's his entire identity. His whole purpose is just to belong to God, to be what God wants, where God wants, when God wants. And that total alignment, well, that's the real source of his confidence. His security isn't based on what's happening around him, but on his connection to that bigger reality. Okay, so now we're going to switch perspectives. We go from the man of God to a man who's a lot more like you and me, Elisha's servant. He doesn't have any supernatural insight. All he has are his own 2 eyes. And what he's about to see is absolutely terrifying. The servant wakes up, steps outside, and his whole world just falls apart. The entire city is surrounded. A huge army with horses and chariots, the full military might of Syria, is right there on their doorstep. From where he's standing, it's over. They're trapped, they're outnumbered, they're doomed. He completely panics and cries out, "Oh no, my master, what are we going to do?" And this slide just perfectly lays out the tension in the story. On one side, you've got what the servant can see, an overwhelming army and certain death. On the other side, you have Elisha's simple, almost crazy response, "Don't be afraid." How can he be so calm? Well, Elisha's not in denial. He's just looking at a completely different set of facts. He can see a reality that is totally invisible to his servant, and he boils it down to this one incredible statement. Those who are with us are more than those who are with them. And that statement leads us right to the climax of the story. This is the moment where the veil is finally lifted, and everything you thought you knew gets turned upside down by a simple, powerful prayer. Elisha knows that just trying to argue with a servant isn't going to work. Seeing is believing, right? So he makes this short, direct request to God. And notice, he doesn't pray for the army to disappear. He prays for his servant's perception to change. And that is the key. This isn't a prayer for physical sight. The servant can see the Syrian army just fine. This is a prayer for true sight, the ability to see reality as it actually is, beyond all the fear and chaos. And in an instant, the servant's world is completely remade. He looks again, and now he sees it. The entire mountain is filled with horses and chariots of fire, a divine army. And this heavenly force has the Syrian army totally surrounded. The servant thought they were the ones who were trapped. The truth was, the enemy was. They had been protected the entire time. But the story doesn't end there with some big supernatural battle. It takes another wild turn, shifting from a show of incredible power to an act of just just radical grace. So now the tables have turned. It's the enemy's turn to be blind. Elisha prays, and the whole Syrian army is struck with physical blindness. They're lost, confused, and in this incredibly bold move, Elisha just walks right up to them, says, "Hey, you're in the wrong place, follow me," and leads the entire captive army into the capital city of Israel. Can you just picture the scene? The Syrian army suddenly gets its sight back, only to realize they're standing, completely helpless, in the middle of their enemy's capital. The king of Israel is ecstatic. "Should I kill them?" he asks. But Elisha's response is a total shocker. "No, feed them. Prepare a huge feast for them." And this is the second huge lesson on sight. Dr. Oswalt points out that Elisha is teaching everyone to see their enemies differently. By showing this incredible hospitality to helpless prisoners, he's showing a power that's even greater than military power, the power to bless, to show grace, and to turn an enemy into a guest. So, what's the ultimate lesson from this whole story of opened eyes? Well, it really boils down to seeing three things clearly: our own situation, God's character, and the right path forward. So according to Dr. Oswalt, having truly opened eyes means seeing three things all at once. First, we see our own situation for what it is, that we're often helpless and driven by fear, just like the servant was. At the same time, we see God's true character, not just powerful, but also incredibly gracious. And when you can see both of those things clearly, it gives you the wisdom to choose the right way forward, a path guided by discernment, not just by fear. And the story shows that this actually works. What was the result of this completely unconventional act of mercy? The Syrian raiding parties just stopped. A great feast did what a great army couldn't. Grace turned out to be the better strategy. And so this ancient story leaves us with a very modern question. It asks you to look at the armies that you face in your own life, your fears, your anxieties, your opponents, and to wonder, what unseen reality might I be missing? What could possibly change for me and for everyone around me if I could just see the whole picture?